Hello, everyone. I'm Ben Dixon. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief here at UOJ America, and you're about to watch the very first installment of our new interview series here on the channel. We have already filmed several interviews, and those are now in post-production, and we're hoping to release those in the coming weeks and months, as well as a series of documentaries that we're putting together on a number of topics, which will be available first to paid viewers and then later to the general public. And so we hope that you'll consider supporting our work either through a donation on the website or by becoming a Patreon or YouTube subscriber. Today's interview is with Father Yaroslav Yasenec, who is a priest in the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Kiev Patriarchate and a chaplain in the Ukrainian Armed Forces. After the controversial council in 2018, Father Yaroslav was serving in the Orthodox Church of Ukraine under Sergei Demenko, also known as Metropolitan Epiphanius. But he recently left this structure, citing a lack of faith and piety among the clergy and a hyper-politicization that has seen it turn into little more than a tool for the spread of liberal ideas in Ukraine. A quick but important note for viewers. The Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Kiev Patriarchate is not recognized as canonical by any local Orthodox church. Father Yaroslav's statements throughout the interview are intriguing and insightful, but it's important to note that they reflect his personal experience as a priest of those structures. As many of you know, UOJ America has covered some of Father Yaroslav's more controversial positions in the time that we've been operating, as have our colleagues in Ukraine. All that said, I want to be fair to Father Yaroslav. In speaking to him both on and off camera, his sincerity was apparent. Clearly, he's a patriot who loves his country, and he's speaking out because he's concerned about the direction that it's going in. It was also clear, at least to me, that he's sincere in his faith and is following it to the best of his understanding in the position that he's in. And so, to be clear, Father Yaroslav's statements are his own. They neither represent the positions of the Union of Orthodox Journalists of America, our affiliates, or anyone here at UOJ USA. I hope you'll join me in praying for the safety of Father Yaroslav as he carries out his duties at the front, for a swift and just end to the war in Ukraine, and for a healing of the schism and the pain caused by the persecution. I hope you enjoy this video. Please remember to like the video, share it with friends, and subscribe to UOJ America. Thank you. All right, welcome everybody. My name is Ben Dixon. I'm the editor-in-chief of UOJ America. And I have here with me Father Yaroslav, who is a priest of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Kiev Patriarchate. And we are going to discuss the situation in Ukraine today, some of the key players, and I think it'll be really insightful for everybody. So, Father Yaroslav, first, thank you so much for joining us. And, let's start, just tell listeners a bit about yourself. When did you become a priest? What were your motivations, and how long have you been serving now?
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for your invitation and for possibility to spread the truth about these terrible events that now are going on in Ukrainian religious life. It is very important for me. I was born here in Kiev in 1992 in the atheistic family of scientists. And I converted to Christianity when I was approximately 18 years old under my own, let's say, spiritual experience. And after that, I studied in Lviv Catholic University because it was the best theological educational institution at that moment here in Ukraine. At that time, I didn't know if I would become a priest or not. And later I studied in International Academy of Philosophy in Granada, Spain. And after that, I received my diploma in Chernivtsi Theological Institute here. And I became the priest in 2018. I was ordained by Patriarch Fіларет. Prior to that, I was for a long time a subdeacon. It was very interesting for me to participate in the liturgy. And then with the blessing of my spiritual mentor, my Geronda, Bishop Lavrenti, I became the priest, and from that time, so it is more than 7 years already, I have been serving as a priest here in Kyiv. But when the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, let's call it for simplicity, just for simplicity, the Church of Epiphanius, like there is no Church of Epiphanius or Filareta or Onufria, it is the Church of Jesus Christ, but for simplicity. So when the Church of Epiphanius was formed in 2018, I was automatically rewritten, let's say, under the homophorion of Metropolitan Epiphanius, and for many years until very recent time, I was under his homophorion. And when the big war with Russia began, I became the chaplain, and I combined my parish service and the chaplaincy service in the war zone. So I spent some time there and some time here in Kyiv. And
Wow.
sorry, and also I graduated, received the MA degree in Holy Cross Hellenic College in Boston, Massachusetts. But since I was not issued the visa, it was before the war began, I completed this program in distance. But I received the diploma, and my MA thesis was devoted to the history of Ukrainian Church beginning from 1989, just the formation of Kyiv Patriarchate, Autocephalous Orthodox Church, based on the witnesses, the interviews with the witnesses of these events that I collected for many years. Yeah.
So you recently, you said that you were under the Church of Epiphany, and then you recently left. So what were the problems that led you to leave his structure? And were these problems evident from the beginning, or did they kind of develop over time?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Well, there are two aspects in this. First is my personal aspect, my likes and dislikes, and the second one is more objective reasons. You see, it developed over time. It did not just occur like that immediately. When this church was formed, I already did not like many things, but I thought that the church is very new, very young. It will all somehow, the mistakes of the past will be corrected, new tendencies will be created, and so on and so on, and everything will become better. But year after year passed, and I saw that almost nothing is getting better. And it made me feel more and more angry. Why so? Why we have a lot of very good, brilliant people here in Ukraine, priests, bishops, monks. Why nobody is trying to do anything? And then I saw that the policy of Epiphanius was to push all the bright personalities as far away from the control of the church as possible, and surround himself with only people who were loyal to him personally and who supported all his initiatives. So I saw that it was happening more and more often. And also when the big war began, they announced what is called the war on the Moscow Patriarchate. So let's make this clear that there is the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, which is led by Metropolitan Onufrius. Let's, for simplicity, call it the Church of Onufrius, which was created by the blessing from the Russian Church back in 1990, but it has the semi-autonomous status, which is said that this church is independent in its regulations, but it's neither autocephalous nor autonomous, according to their Thomas. And unfortunately, there are many pro-Russian priests and bishops in this church, but there are many pro-Ukrainian who want this church to be independent. And when the big war started, for many of the hierarchs, it was, let's say, very striking and painful experience, because many of them considered Russia to be like our brothers, and they understood that they are not brothers at all. And the big movement in Church of Onufrius began for its independence, total independence. But Ukrainian state and the Church of Epiphanius declared that they are all Russian agents, and it was a good way to seize away the property, the buildings of the church, the institution, and the influence. And this was done in a very bad, undemocratic and cruel way, totally unchristian way, let's say. And I didn't want to take part in it. And for a long time, I thought that what I'm doing in this structure, it doesn't bring any good fruits. So we don't have enough priests. We have very few parishes. We don't have monasteries almost at all. Our level of education is very bad. We lost the parishes that were abroad when in time of Kyiv Patriarchate, there were many parishes abroad. Now we lost them according to the Tomos of the Ecumenical Patriarch. So we did not gain anything, and the Church of Epiphanius, it is rather dependent on the Ecumenical Patriarch. And of course, this, let's say, patriotic element in this church, it's not quite patriotic. It is just serving the interests of current Ukrainian ideology. So we are basically doing the same as the church in Russia is now doing, serving Putin's regime. Just here, the Orthodox Church of Ukraine is serving the current president and the current policy. But you see, Ukraine now chose the vector of liberalism, the European liberalism, the liberalism of Democratic Party of the United States, which I dislike very much because it's totally unchristian. And so Epiphanius and his loyal hierarchs, they also support that. And also that was why one of the reasons they did not like me, because I was ultra-conservative priest. And then the change of the church calendar to the new style was, for me, was very shocking. And the most important thing, how everyone easily agreed on that. There were almost no debate. So it means that these things, they're not important for them at all. And many other things that there are, the low level of priests who are ordained, the low level of the chaplains and the procedure of appointing the chaplains to the military. They have far more Protestant and Catholic chaplains than we have Orthodox chaplains. And these attacks on the Church of Onufrius, which are very violent, and which destroy the reputation of Epiphanius and his church abroad, and also how they their attitude towards Patriarch Filaret, which is a separate topic, but generally Epiphanius just betrayed Filaret, who was his teacher and who gave him everything. And these liberal tendencies that they say they have to support the European choice of Ukraine, European meaning the join to the European Union, and many other things. It will be for a long time to list everything. I made a video about 2 hours describing everything that happened. But these are the main reasons, and the most of all, that it did not get better year after year. It only got worse. And one day I understood that I have to excuse myself in front of my consciousness and in front of God. Why am I participating in this structure? And that was the reason that I decided to leave, to break up once and for all.
Wow, yeah, you covered a lot of, I think, really important points here. And I want to kind of dig into kind of each one of them. So I think it's important for especially Americans to kind of understand what's happening on the ground, because so often Orthodox news in America is tied to a jurisdiction. And so it's very filtered. And so what we are trying to do is present an independent voice and hear out kind of both sides. And so I want to start, you have spoken in the past and just now about the low level of theological education, and that the OCU, Epiphanius Church, kind of ordains anyone and everyone, including priests who hardly know the creed.
Yes.
Why do you think they do this? I guess that's kind of what I'm trying to wrap my mind around. A lot of us, we see videos of priests who don't even know how to make the sign of the cross.
Yes, yes.
Why would they do this?
That priest you are referring to, he is actually a professor in the Kyiv Theological Academy, the main educational institution of Epiphanius Church, you see. So I believe that the problem is that very few people want to become priests in this church. Very few people wish to serve, and they have no interest in theology, in deep theology. Many priests want to be like, they want to become, to get a parish, to have a stable place and to have financial support. Because if you have a good parish here in Ukraine, it's not like in the United States. When you have a good parish here, you can supply yourself and you can get enough money, and sometimes you can even be a rather rich person here in Ukraine. So yeah, it is possible, but only if you are loyal to the system. If you are very loyal, the system will appoint you to a wealthy place. But they have no deep interest in theology, and they don't want actually to conduct some kind of research, to create great works in theology. We can compare, for example, the topics of the conferences in Kyiv Theological Academy and St. Vladimir's Seminary of the Orthodox Church of America. We can compare, and there in an unorthodox country with very low financing of the church and very low and no support from the state. Here we have the full support. There is no support from the state. The level of education is much better, and the level of the conferences in Ukrainian Theological Academy, professors don't have the publication in Scopus. Can you imagine? Those who are doing PhD and the professors, they don't have this kind of publications in any true educational institution. That would be impossible. And also we need like lots of priests to fill up the empty churches. And that's why if anyone has any even smallest wish to serve, they would be ordained and they would be appointed, no matter how low their educational institution is. And it is not the new problem. Even many bishops cannot say the sermon properly, unfortunately. Many bishops don't have the proper education. That is the big problem. When I applied to the Holy Cross, I needed the recommendation from Metropolitan Epiphanius for the embassy to help me to obtain the visa. And he refused to even to talk to me. And when I met him on one of the events, I asked him, I gave him the written request. And he said, you know what, why do you need one more diploma? You already have one. So he is not interested that you have good educated priests abroad. He said, you already have one diploma, you don't need anything else. So that shows his attitude towards these kinds of problems, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on that, because you said in your statement just now that you would get a good parish assignment if you were obedient, right? If you're loyal to the system, and likewise that they're not interested in education. So is the desire more to cultivate an obedient caste of priest than it is one who is actually educated in the gospel and interested in doing those works?
Yes, it is true. because this system needs servants. It is like totally Russian model. This came from Russia and from Russian model that obedience is more important than prayers and fasting. Perhaps if we take it in the understanding of the church fathers, when through obedience to your spiritual mentor, to your geronda, the will of God is revealed to you, then it might be true, but it is only if you have true spiritual mentors. If this is like simply a church administrative who maybe is not has not very high spiritual level, then it is totally wrong, because you will be serving this more of a political system. And in Russian church, we see this problem that priests are afraid to speak against Patriarch Cyril and against the regime. And that is why most of them are supporting the Russian invasion into Ukraine. But we say that we declare a war on the Moscow Patriarchate. But you are doing the same as they are doing, but on the much lower level. So it is not the true obedience to the will of God. It's just the obedience to this administrative hierarchy. And that's the problem, I believe. I was always obedient to my spiritual mentor, who his words, his advices meant a lot to me. I was always obedient to him. The only thing when I broke up with his advices and orders was when I decided to leave the structure of Epiphanius, and he remained loyal because he is like a true monk. So he said that I will remain loyal to him. But I said I cannot stand it anymore. So that was the only time. But I'm sorry, maybe it's my pride, lack of humility, but when I see what Epiphanius and his followers are doing, I see that it is not true, and I cannot be a part of this.
Yeah, Epiphanius, he claims a sincere desire to unite Orthodoxy in Ukraine, but very clearly in reality, his actions are furthering the divide and kind of pushing things away from any type of authentic reconciliation. Would you say that being considered based on his words versus his deeds, is he setting the agenda for the church, or is somebody else really kind of setting the pace for how his church acts and functions in society?
Yeah, thank you for this question. I believe it's a kind of very complex situation. Because you see, on one hand, Epiphanius receives certain orders from the state, from the president and from the followers. They want to have only one, as they say, national church. It's not about Orthodox or Catholic or anything else. They want to have a national church. Exactly like they have in Russia. They have very strong Orthodox church in Russia, and they want to have something similar in Ukraine. But since in Ukraine, the Western Ukraine is under Unia, Greek Catholic Church, and there are lots of Protestant denominations, so they need this kind of the state church to serve the state. On the other hand, Epiphanius is very happy that he has this power and that he is favored by state, exactly like Patriarch Cyril, but on much lower level. And he doesn't want to lose his power, because if any true unification occurs, for example, let's imagine that Metropolitan Onufrius and his surroundings agree to conduct a new council to unite. There would be more bishops from the side of Onufrius than from the side of Epiphanius. And of course, their majority would elect their leader, their metropolitan, the one they would want. And Epiphanius and his followers would lose their positions. Of course, he doesn't want to do that. On the third, the Patriarch of Constantinople now, I think that he regrets that he granted this Tomos to Ukrainian church, because he told Epiphanius that I gave you this Tomos to unite the Orthodoxy and you are dividing it. And after that violent seizing of the church in Черкаси, the big church which was seized and attacked very violently by followers of Epiphanius. So when Patriarch Bartholomew viewed this video, he gathered an important synod of his church, and they even discussed the possibility to take the Thomas away. But at the end, they said that it would strike their reputation very heavily, because like we first gave this Thomas, now we are taking it back. It doesn't look serious enough, and the whole world will make fun of us. So they decided to leave the Thomas to the Epiphanius, but they were very concerned about it, that he is not uniting the Orthodoxy, but dividing it. And that is why there is tension, of course, between Epiphanius and Patriarch Bartholomew. And I believe that Epiphanius is now, he's angry and he wants to fight for his ideas until the end. So I believe it is a rather complex situation. And of course, the liberal influences from the West that say that Epiphanius Church must not be very radical. It must be liberal, it must be open. For example, as we see the Autonomous Church of Finland, who concelebrated with Epiphanius, they declared that this gay community must be included into the church, which is exactly against the Orthodox canons. And this is the way Epiphanius is heading. So it is a very complex situation, and I believe that his personal desire to remain in power he will do everything to postpone this unification.
Interesting. Yeah, I do want to touch on the liberal aspect here shortly, but before we move on, mentioning Constantinople and the church seizures. One, how are these seizures perceived within the OCU itself? How are priests like Roman Grishuk and Nazare Zazansky, how are they viewed by other clergy, by the faithful? How does that work?
Well, they are viewed as very good people, efficient organizers, and very big patriots. They, for a long time, they received their mitras, their crosses with decorations, all these church awards, and they also receive big money from their sponsors. So they don't need anything as long as they are loyal, as long as they are favored by the system. They receive rather big financial amounts. I can say that because I see what types of cars they are driving. Simple people and simple priests in Ukraine cannot afford such types of cars. And there are also other priests who are organizing these seizures and attacks on the church. There is priest Ioan Chokaluk, who is said to be the close relative of Metropolitan Epiphanius. There are several other priests, and for them, Orthodoxy doesn't matter. Only this patriotic agenda is the only thing that matters. There is a priest, Serhiy Dmitriev, who is a chaplain, and he is considered to be very important and patriotic chaplains. And when he was interviewed by a journalist, Yanina Sokolova, also the great patriot of liberal Ukrainian media, in their conversation, they said that in the Church of Onufrius, there is no Holy Communion. So they said that they think, I'm sorry, but I have to quote this, if they eat some trash from the spoon, it makes them holy. You understand what they were referring to. So these priests say that their church, the Church of Onufrius, is not the real church. But then I ask them, when a priest joins from the Church of Onufrius, joins the Church of Epiphanius, he is not reordained. According to the dogmatic theology, their ordinations and their sacraments are recognized here. How can you say such things There was one priest from Odessa diocese, I have that video in my archives, who said that churches of Onufrius, like the church buildings, there are nothing more than public bathrooms. Can you imagine that? So they don't need orthodoxy. They need.
It's kind of weird to steal public bathrooms, then, huh?
Yeah, they don't need orthodoxy. They need a patriotic structure. And the chaplains, not all, they are very good chaplains, but unfortunately, many chaplains who are like popular, they are used to seize the churches. So they bring a couple of warriors from the front line, very patriotic warriors. They come and say that we are the warriors who defend Ukraine, who fight against the Russian aggression. And here we have a hub of Russian agents of influence, and we have to drive them away. And then with the help of police and the help of local authorities, the fights begin. And if the local church community cannot gather enough people to defend themselves, usually the church building is taken away. And then this thing may be taken to court, but usually, since the courts are very corrupt in Ukraine, usually the decision remains with this national church. So it shames the institute of the chaplaincy altogether, and this shames their priesthood. So you can understand why I could no longer consider myself to be a part of them. So these are indeed the terrible things that are happening here. So our patriots, of course, I'm a patriot myself, and I love my country and I love my nation, and I am also taking part in this war. But I believe that the Orthodox faith is more important, and that is why I would never say such things. For me, an honest priest from the Church of Onufrius, I consider him my brother, and we have actually good personal communications with several of their priests and even bishops. So that is why.
Yeah. How aware is Constantinople of the church seizures? Obviously, at this point, they're aware of situations like in Chernivtsi, but I know when we have tried to reach out to Greek hierarchs, they've said, "Oh, well, these are fabricated videos; these are exaggerations." But in your telling, this is something that they're not only concerned about, but they've considered rescinding the tomos even. So how aware are they, and have they tried in any way that you're aware of to rein in some of these actions in any way?
As far as I know, they tried to regulate these issues, but Epiphanius now feels himself in charge of everything. And since he is supported by the state, it is very hard to change anything. And I believe that Patriarch Bartholomew is now not even, trying to do something. And sometimes he supports Epiphanius a little bit, like organizing his visit to Mount Athos, in order to show that he is responsible for his decisions. So he helped to create the Orthodox Church of Ukraine. So now he's responsible for them, and he just cannot, his honor does not let him just to say that I don't have anything to do with that. And
honor or pride.
I believe that he maybe he prays and maybe he hopes that this situation is going to change. But I know that he and many bishops are not pleased with this matter. So that is exactly what I know, and that the tensions are very high. For example, I cannot say because it's was personal information for me, but I know exactly that the tensions between the exarch of the Ecumenical Patriarch, Bishop Michael Anishchenko, and Epiphanius, their relationships are very hard. And we can see that on the picture, they are not celebrating together the liturgy for a very, very long time. First, they celebrated together often, but now they are not celebrating anymore.
Interesting. you've mentioned, and obviously it's been pretty fairly well documented at this point, that many of the churches that are seized by these raiders then remain empty. Why is that? Is there a is it a what are the motivations for not returning to the church? Is it just canonicity, or do you think it has something to do with the people's perception of the clergy of the OCU and some of the concerns that you have mentioned?
I think that there are several reasons for that. One of the reasons is habits of people. People are tied to their priest. People are tied to their community. And when their church building is taken away, they will gather in other buildings with their priest and their brothers and sisters and pray together. The other reason may be because they see that the new priest is not of such a high level. That may be also. And also, if the church was taken away by force, who would want to go to that church? Who would want to go to the one who attacked their community and tried to take it away? So I believe that there are these three reasons. Of course, there is an element of propaganda that the Church of Epiphanius, that they are schismatics, which I personally don't believe, because but it's more ecclesiology, that they are schismatics, that they don't have valid sacraments, they then don't have valid ordinations. But I think that this propaganda is only a small part of the reasons. I believe that one reason is emotional attachment to the priest and community, and the other is negative emotions to those who just took away your church and attacked your brothers and sisters. I believe that these two are the most important things.
Okay. And moving on to monasteries, obviously the OCU publishes the number of monasteries, but not the number of monastics. What do you think the reason is for the low levels of monasticism in Epiphanius's church?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. I believe the problem, this is not a new problem. This problem began in 1990s when the independent Ukrainian Church of Kiev-Patriarchate was formed. Those were very hard events. I could send you my work devoted to that, how it all happened. Then at that time, indeed, Moscow interfered. And so this breakup of Orthodoxy in Ukraine, it was very painful and it was very unjust. And most of the monks remained with, at that time, Metropolitan Volodymyr Sabodan, the hierarch who was appointed by Russia, appointed to be the Metropolitan of Kiev, and they were in opposition with Filaret. So it was called the canonical church. And so most of the monks remained with them. And then, of course, when the Church of Filaret, the Kiev Patriarchate, it was very hard to form the monastic tradition if you don't have almost anything. When most of the Gerondas, old monks, the spiritual fathers remained on the other side, it is very hard to form anything new. And when, for example, the Greek church and other churches of the Orthodox world do not want to have anything in common with you, you don't have, where would you have to take example from? Who will teach your young monks to become true monks? It is very hard to form this from nothing. But when the Church of Epiphanius was recognized, when there are new possibilities to communicate with Mount Athos, at least several monasteries, with monasteries in Greece, in Cyprus, and in some other countries, when you have this opportunity, it would be possible to send young monks there to so-called study this science of salvation, science of holiness. They could study there and then come here and become mentors for other monks. We could invite their gerondas to come here. I believe that the ecumenical patriarch would help with that with great joy. He would be happy to obtain this exchange of monks. But no one is interested in this. It's exactly like with the educational system. They are not interested. They need these monks for decoration. There are several monasteries in different dioceses, but there can be 1 or 2 or 3 monks and no more. And if you see the situation with Kyiv-Lavra, the biggest monastery that was taken away with the use of state administration, there used to be about 150 monks in Lavra under Metropolitan Onufrius. And now in the Church of Epiphanius, they have only about 6 of them. The thing is that there is no tradition. There are no true examples. It could be fixed. It could be healed, especially now when the church is recognized. But someone had to work on that, and nobody wants to work on this issue. And some young priests try to become monks in order to become bishops in the future. It is also a kind of hierarchy elevator for that. For example, we have the most known St. Michael's Monastery in the center of Kyiv, where Epiphanius celebrates his liturgy. There are only about maybe 12 or 13 monks there, and they have all the necessary conditions. But you see, this monastery, it is very old. It was established in the beginning of the 90s. But you don't have the old monks who came there and stayed. As well as in 2 other monasteries in Kyiv, the St. Theodosius Monastery, the Vidubici Monastery here. There are no monks who stayed from the beginning. In the Lavra, there were, under Metropolitan Onufrius, there still are there. They are held in captivity now. 3 monks who came there in the beginning of the 90s, and they are still there. In here, you cannot see this kind of situation. So they come and go. They don't have true understanding of what monastic life is. When I was younger, I spent a lot of time in the monasteries of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. I was in novitiate there. I communicated with true monks, so I have an idea how it should be. Unfortunately, now the biggest problem is that Epiphanius does not want to work on this. It can all be done, it can all be fixed, but they just don't see the interest.
Yeah, speaking of the Kyivo-Pечерській Lavra, which is much loved here in America, some sources claim that the OCU monks the monks of Epiphanius Church are only allowed to inhabit the part of the Lavra given to his church if they sign contracts and become employees of the historical preserve that the state has set up. Is that true? What information do you have about that?
Yeah, that is true, because the Lavra in 1920s, the communists took it away from the church, as you know, and from that time it was a museum, and officially it is its official status up to this day is the status of the museum, unfortunately. So and that makes me very sad. There are a lot of historical Ukrainian churches and monasteries who are owned by state and with the status of the museum. It makes me very sad, because we conducted decommunization, but in this aspect, for some reason, decommunization did not occur. But these new monks, I don't know if all of them signed the contract in order to live there, but I know that most of them are official employees of the museum, and they are doing some kind of work there for the museum to receive the salary, to have some money for their own needs. perhaps you can be a monk inhabiting there without the contract. I'm not sure, but I know that most of them are employed officially by state.
And it's a very small number, you said. Do you have an exact number, or?
I think it's 6 monks. There used to be 7 of them, but one of them left. I'm sorry, not a long time ago. He said that there is no true monastic life and he doesn't want to participate in that. He is my good friend. I know him for a long time, so he left. And when they are making pictures of their services, most times they're taking pictures only of those who are celebrating and not of the people. And sometimes if you see independent pictures, you see that there are the amount of people who attend the services is very, very small. And in Lavra, under Metropolitan Onufrius, as it used to be, even on weekdays, there were lots of people in the churches, even on the weekly liturgy. But on Sunday, they had about 8 liturgies in different churches throughout Lavra, and all these churches were filled with people. And now they are having liturgy only on Sunday and on big feasts. And there are about maybe from 50 to 70 people average present there.
Wow, that's a huge drop.
Yeah, that is very sad. And actually, I don't know. Well, this also can be fixed. There are ways to draw people to come to Lavra, to the services, but you have to work on that. You know why the Greek Catholics in the Western Ukraine have lots of people who are coming to their churches, and they're having many institutions, including the educational, publishing institutions, and so on, because they are working all the time. They are finding money, including from abroad. They are sending specialists, like sending people to become specialists abroad and then come here and promote something. They are working. And in the Church of Epiphanius, they think that if we receive the Thomas and now the state are favored by the state, everything will come by itself. It won't. You have to do something. You have to gain it. Patriarch Filaret, for 30 years, he was working, he was building churches, he was earning money for church needs. He was himself translating church literature, the liturgical literature and the theological literature. He was translating it by himself. He was traveling throughout Ukraine. He was preaching. He found contacts with different politicians, pro-Ukrainian, pro-Russian, pro-American, very different politicians. He was friends with President Clinton. So a lot of things he tried to do. And he built the church that was rather big and rather strong. And Epiphanius, not only he did not promote it and develop it, he lost a lot that was built by his predecessor.
Do you think that the current state of the Orthodox community in Ukraine, the division, the persecution on the one side, and the, we'll say, complacency on the other in terms of Epiphanius, do you worry that this creates a pathway for the Unia to grow and to become more influential in Ukraine? Is that a concern that you have, or that is seen in the Church of Epiphanius?
Yes, I think that it is quite possible, because the Greek Catholics, the Uniats, they benefit the most from this struggle of two branches of Orthodox Church, because at some point when the Church of Onufrius will be weakened and the Church of Epiphanius will not grow and will not promote and give anything back, the Uniats might say, now look at us. We are strong. We have a lot of people. We have a lot of priests. We are like connected to the civilized world, as they would like to call it, this liberal world. and so on. And why cannot we become the national church? And I believe that the state at some point can say, all right, we see you as useful instrument, so now we will build the national church on the ground of your hierarchy. And they already are declaring that they are the true church because they have the uncorrupted line of ordinations since the baptism of the Kiev Rus. So they considered that the unia was the true unification. So when Kiev Rus was baptized, there still was no division between East and West. And so when the unia occurred, then it was the return to that church that was before the great schism of the 11th century. So that is why they are saying that they are the true church of Saint Volodymyr's baptism. And I think that they are now keeping this quiet, but it is quite possible that it is their plan. Because I spent a lot of time in Lviv, I studied in their university, I still communicate with many Greek Catholics personally, and I see the way of their preaching, of their sermon. They are saying that we are Orthodox, but we are just in the union with Rome. Why cannot we be in union with Rome? It is right, because all the Christians must be together. But we have our own independent tradition. We have our theology. We have our independent hierarchy, and so on and so on. So they consider themselves to be Orthodox, and they are presenting themselves Orthodox. And I believe that it is quite possible that with some next president and government, they will find this sort of agreement. And considering the movements of the current Pope Leo and Patriarch Bartholomew, I believe that it is possible that the new unia will be worldwide, let's say.
Yeah, there's a prevailing, we'll say, opinion among Orthodox Christians, at least in America. We see a lot of OCA clerics, praying with uniate clergy in Ukraine. And there's this prevailing narrative that in many ways the OCU as a project is really meant to open the way for the union with Rome. And that in the end, the OCU would either unite with the Unia or be overpowered by it. And that really it's almost a, what's the word I'm looking for? A stepping stone, right, for the eventual Catholicization of Ukraine. What are your thoughts there? Do you think there's a pathway there? Do you think that's an overblown estimation?
Well, I believe that that might be true. I would not reject this opinion, but I don't have exact facts to state that it is totally true. I even believe that there exists some kind of a plan of division of Ukraine, and part of this plan may be conducted by Russian secret services and part may be conducted by American. So the East and the West, they're planning to divide Ukraine. We see how it was divided politically. We see how it is now divided by war. And probably the chances of healing back, of reclaiming of our territories are very, very low, unfortunately. So we lost a lot. And now the religious life, the division also exists. So I believe that, yes, it could be true that the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, the Church of Epiphanius, might unite with Unia at some point, and there already were even situations when Catholic priests were participating in the liturgy with the Church of Epiphanius once or twice only. I don't have this video right now with me, but you can look it up online. such events took place, and we see that they are much more favored to communicate with Archbishop Sviatoslav, the head of the Greek Catholic Church, and with Catholic bishops, then Metropolitan Onufrios, who might have some influence on him. Russia might have some influence on him, but nevertheless, he is Orthodox. For example, if I ever become the bishop and the head of the church, I would immediately start to create some maybe peace agreements with Metropolitan Onufrios and his bishops, because I know what to say to them. I know how what is right and what words they would hear. And Epiphanius does not know that. He has very low level of education. He never was a true monk, and he was never actually Orthodox. He was brought up in a very peculiar path. He was isolated from the living church, and he was always like in kind of administrative, and he was always a servant to Patriarch Filaret. So there are lots of things he doesn't know. And his followers, they were brought up in the idea that those are the Russian church, they are our enemies, and we cannot have anything in common with them. So that is why, yeah, it is very sad. I believe the best way to come out of this crisis, if we seek the participation of the state. The state, it would be the best to work with Church of Metropolitan Onufrios to find those who are really the Russian agents. Unfortunately, there are such people, but the state has to find them. If they committed real crimes, the state has to prosecute them. They have to face trials, they have to be imprisoned or sent away to Russia in exchange for our prisoners of war, for example, as it happened with Metropolitan Yonafan Yeletskich, who was exchanged for our soldiers who were captive. And then when the Church of Onufrios is cleared from the real agents of Moscow, then a unification has to be proposed, but then this unification must be true. If they have more bishops, then they can elect the one they want. And their institution, monasteries, parishes, educational institutions, they will remain Orthodox, and they will be for the good of Ukrainian nation. Then only then the one true Orthodox Church can be created here.
Do you think it's possible after the war for Moscow and Constantinople to come together for such a reunion council? Do you think the participation of both is necessary?
I believe that what concerns Moscow, it cannot be trusted. It is a criminal regime. Putin is a war criminal, and he has to be condemned by the world, and including by the United States. For many reasons, I like President Trump, but the thing I don't like about him is that he is like playing with Putin. He is not opposing him the way he should be. So I believe that the Church of Onufrios, they have to declare their independence from Moscow. If they want to be Ukrainian church and viewed as the Ukrainian church, they have to declare it. And then they will receive the assistance of Constantinople and of the Ukrainian state. And then on this basis of the true church who brings the true fruits of Christianity, the orthodoxy of Ukraine can be healed. I believe that is the only way. Moscow doesn't have anything to do with that. It has to be rejected totally. You know, from Moscow you cannot receive anything good, anything.
So moving to your statements about the OCU politically, you know, from the outside, the OCU and its rhetoric towards the UOC and kind of everything that they consider part of the Russian world seems very nationalistic. And you've touched on how many of their priests are very, hardline patriots who want to seize churches and this and that. And yet you say that they are liberal, and we do see elements of that. So how do you reconcile that? Is there a nationalist element and a liberal element within the OCU? Are they somehow combined? How are they liberal and at the same time a nationalist kind of movement?
Yeah, thank you. It's a good question. Unfortunately, the OCU is not nationalistic enough. There is nothing bad for a local Orthodox church to be nationalistic. The Greeks are very nationalistic. The Romanians are very nationalistic. The Georgians and the Cypriots, they even had their first president, the head of the Church of Cyprus, Archbishop Makarios. The Russians as well. So there is nothing bad about it. But nationalism, it cannot be liberal by definition. So some kind of liberal nationalism is just a joke. It cannot be that way. So the problem that the OCU receives aid from abroad, and that is why they are looking into this Western direction. And since Ukrainian, like the most passionate and moving force of Ukrainian army are the military units composed of Ukrainian nationalists, like the Azov and many others, and my regiment 225, they are composed of nationalists and nationalistic commanders. The church has to demonstrate some kind of loyalty to them. And that is why there are several priests, like myself and several others, who were nationalists. They were not favored, but they were kept as sort of puppets to be to show the nationalistic movements that the OCU is actually on their side. Because unfortunately, many nationalists, when they see this liberal Christianity, they see that the OCU is liberal, the Church of Onufrios is Russian, and they what can they choose? The Unia, they don't take it seriously. They think that it is some kind of purely Western type of church. So that is why they often choose the paganism, the ancient Ukrainian faiths and symbols, because they believe that that was like the religion of war. They are the warriors, and so they choose this religion of war. And one of my missions was to show them that Christianity can also bless the war if it is a just war, if it is a sacred war, if this war is for protection of your nation and liberation of your people. And that is why lots of nationalistic movements liked me and considered me being their priest. But Epiphanius, surroundings of Epiphanius told me several times that you have to stop that, because some people are telling Epiphanius that you have that mad priest who is always with the nationalists. So they don't reconcile properly. It's some kind of mixture without any logical argumentation, if you understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So the church, the Church of Epiphanius needs communication with the nationalists, but their headmasters from abroad are telling them that you don't have to communicate with them too much. And that is the problem. And that is exactly the problem with the Ukrainian state in a wider sense, because Ukrainian state, they chose this way of liberalism and the movement towards the European Union. And the European Union, as you know, hates everything that is connected with the nationalism. And that is why nationalists are just used by these liberal powers for the war. and after that they will be rejected. It would be good if not imprisoned, but they would be rejected. They would be thrown on the side of political and social life. Unfortunately, I believe that that is what will happen.
Yeah. Well, and if we're being frank, the EU not only hates anything nationalistic, but anything Christian.
Yes.
The only time they appreciate Christianity is when it backs up their leftist ideology and when it goes along. And so I wonder if Epiphanius understands that he's what Stalin would have called a useful idiot, right? Somebody who is going to help him implement the agenda, but probably be killed in the end, right? He'll be pushed out.
I don't think he will be killed.
Well, I mean, verbally,
will...
not really killed, but just that he'll be pushed aside, right? Once he's no longer of use. Yes. Because the only reason they favor the OCU and not the UOC or the Kiev Patriarchate is because it's willing to push this LGBT agenda, like the Finnish church and this pluralistic, well, we need to pray with Muslims and Jews and everything else, right? Because at the end of the day, the state is the ultimate religion. Yes,
you are quite right. I am not sure if Epiphanius understands this, because actually he is not very intelligent or very well educated. You can listen to his sermons. I believe many of them are translated, or they can be translated by AI. They are of very, very low quality, at least for me. So I'm not sure if he understands that. I believe that he is happy with the position he received. So now he is the head of so-called national church. He is favored by the president and Ukrainian government. He is invited abroad. And I believe that later he will receive some kind of honored retirement in a big mansion with enough money to just live, have a beautiful life that he likes. He actually likes pleasures, he likes richness, and so on and so on. He's a little bit like Patriarch Cyril.
He sounds like some of the Russian bishops we know, right?
Yes, exactly. He's a little bit like that. So he likes that kind of stuff. But I believe that they don't understand Epiphanius and his hierarchs. They don't understand the grave danger of these liberal values, anti-values, let's say. They don't understand that it will destroy Ukraine. And they don't believe that everything that is actually Ukrainian will be swept away. Because before the big war started, there were a lot of nationalistic movements here in Ukraine. I participated in some of them. And the state propaganda did everything to portray them as criminals or as something very dangerous elements who don't let Ukraine to join the European Union. And also the state propaganda always said that they are working for Russia. They're financed from Russia. So we have the enemy, and then this enemy finances the Ukrainian nationalists in order to stop Ukraine from moving into the European Union. And the big problem is that good nationalistic and conservative movements in Europe, they are under Russian influence, because for many years Russians did not sit there and do nothing. They used their secret services to influence the nationalists in Europe, like why Hungary is now supporting Russia. Because among their conservatives, Russian agents were influencing them for a very long time. The same with Serbia, the same with conservative movements in Germany and in France. And I am in communication with the aristocratic families in Europe from Austria, and they are viewing Russia as some kind of place of salvation from this European liberalism. And I'm telling them, so come on, it is not true. Russia is not what it seems. You can go there, live there for a year, and you will see it yourself. Russia is not what it seems. So conservatism and Christianity is what will save us, but it has nothing to do with Russia. So you say that Russia is so conservative. Abortions are officially allowed in Russia. They have strong leader Putin, who is calling himself Orthodox and the guardian of the values. And he has so much power that he can allow or prohibit anything by just his one signature. Why does he allow abortions to exist in Russia? So that shows that there is nothing truly conservative and nothing truly Christian in Russia. It's just the way they want to seem. But yes, in Europe, such an idea exists, and that is why in Serbia, Serbian church, they are very favoring Russia. Part of Greece, part of Cyprus, they are also looking toward them. The Church of Poland, they are suffering under the pressure from the Roman Catholics. So Russia sometimes they give them money, sometimes they give them ideas, but yeah, that is a big problem.
Yeah. Well, that concludes our questions. I want to thank you, Father Yaroslav, for coming on and giving us and our listeners a chance to learn more about the situation in Ukraine. We're very grateful, and we hope that God will continue to protect you as you carry out your duties as a chaplain at the front. And that at the end of all this will be a just peace for Ukraine, but also peace in the church, which is more important than anything at the end of the day. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. God bless you.